Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is One Day Today, episode 114, and going strong 2022. So glad to have you with us. Why are we here? What is this? What is this experience of being born on this planet? Like, what is it that we're doing? Are we here to survive? Or are we here to go beyond? You know, the life and the conversations that we've inherited, and those are the kinds of inquiries that excite me and that lead us to have this stage every day, with all people from all over the world with different outlooks, different perspectives, different colors and creeds and beliefs. What is it that we're creating, today and in the future? What is it that you know are we just ants spinning on a rock, or is there something more? And that's, I feel, for me, I feel like that's kind of the experiment in the journey of life. The things that led me here, in my music, and just starting this platform and this organization is, you know every day, we all have the choice to plant seeds for others, whether it's of love, of laughter, of joy, or beauty, or wonder. And every day, we have that choice, and it's like we can create a whole world from a space of what's possible when we're standing on the possibility of what we create right now, and now and today. And that's what this platform is to share the stories and the wisdom and the gifts of people from all over, people who are leaders in their communities, who are up to something greater than themselves. And I'm really excited about both our guests today. First, let me welcome our co-host Matthew. Mahalo.
Thank you. Every time. You're welcome. I don't know what you're welcome for, but like, you're welcome.
I like saying that because your response is. How are you today, brother?
Like what cracks me up is like you're not the only person that does that. I've had like in the since you started, there have been three other people when they find out I'm on Hawaii, the first thing they say is, "Oh, mahalo." I'm like, okay. For the record, mahalo is thank you, and aloha is actually aloha is a beautiful word, and it kind of fits in with what you were just saying. So I'll kind of share that really fast. The literal definition is alo, with, ha, breath, but the Hawaiian language isn't literal. It's all prose. It's all metaphor. There is no single definition for any particular word. It's all context. It's how you say it. And so, aloha, with breath, specifically the breath of life, that force that motivates us, is in common usage very similar to namaste. It is the recognition and the honoring of the breath of life in each other. And the traditional Hawaiian greeting would actually would be aloha, and then to touch foreheads and share breath, and to share that breath of life, and to connect on that level. And that to me is really one of the most powerful things that we are here to do, is to experience connection, to experience that wonder and joy of discovering something new about ourselves through connecting with another. And that's also what we do here on the stage quite a bit, is like the conversations we have here have been literally mind-blowing for me, as in they have literally blown apart a lot of beliefs that I didn't even know I had at the time. And like that's the other beautiful thing, is like really being able to step outside of myself and like, oh wow, okay, that's possible.
Yeah, it's been one of the many lessons in this holding this space is I've seen it like kind of a common thread in a lot of people sharing, and in my own journey is our greatest teacher is our failure, but our greatest our lessons mostly come from when we fail than when we succeed, but also from who we disagree with rather than who we already agree with. And it's like it's hearing a different perspective, you know, without judgment and just accepting. If the goal of living on this planet was to everybody to agree, we would be doomed. You know, that's not, you know, that's not helpful, because it's just like that's almost what the game we've been playing. It's like the tribes with the most, you know, the loudest voice and the angriest, and you know, we've had wars fought, we've had just over my perspective of what God means is right and yours is wrong, and I can't hear you. And it's like, what what lessons can we learn when we can actually, like, just like example, like, you know, I was raised in, you know, in California, not at all religious. You know, my father's Jewish, but I wasn't, you know, I didn't go to temple or anything. But you know, just because I wasn't raised religiously doesn't mean I can't go to a church. And you know, I've done this where it's like, I just want to hear what you have to say. I'm not gonna, you know, and it's like, what, you know, what would it look like if we, you know, if we all could do that for ourselves? Like, go out of our way just to listen and to just experience and connect with someone that's different than we are, that has completely different beliefs, and to be intentional in seeing the extraordinary human that they are, that like who they are at the core, but also, you know, what new collaborations could be had when we set aside the right wrong conversation.
Yeah, like what can we actually do when we can talk about the things that we believe in without being attached to those things, like without needing that thing to be, this is it, like this is the only truth. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but like, if that's the only truth, how can I say this? It's like, okay, maybe that is the only truth, but what is your experience of living as if that's the only truth? Is that actually a fulfilling life for you? And I don't know many people who have said yes when really, like, when they're really being honest with themselves about that question. Is it actually kind of puts into highlight how limiting beliefs can be. And they can be incredibly empowering, but they can also be incredibly limiting. And yeah, like being able to have conversations like this on here and actually bring multiple beliefs and viewpoints in and like play with those, I've found to be very, very helpful.
Well, I think on that note is a good opportunity to welcome our first guest. Very excited to have her. Please welcome to the stage, everybody, Sarah Patterson.
Sarah.
Hi,
Sarah,
everyone. Nice to
welcome.
be here.
Welcome.
Thank
Glad
you
to
for
have you.
being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Sarah, if you're ready to jump in, the stage is yours. And welcome
Yeah.
to the stage, everybody. Sarah Patterson.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here and for the opportunity to talk. And so I was thinking about, what might be relevant and helpful to talk about today. And I thought just talking about your authentic self and how that actually develops. And how you can ensure that actually comes into fruition in your everyday actions. And, I thought back to myself, how did I become who I am today? And a lot of it had to do with, childhood, upbringing, the great country that we live in. And I thought to myself, what is all that made up of? And it's made up of values, our culture as a country, as a family, and just the opportunity that we have as well, the wonderful opportunity we have here in America, and it even extends internationally. And so I thought about, what are my values? And so as a company, we have our values, and my personal values are very similar to those. And they're really, focused on excellence, trust, love, and collaboration. And those values are something that, we basically have that dictate our behavior every single day. And it even translates into our goals and our objectives. Like, how can we be more excellent? How can we foster more trust? How can we extend more love and to serve? How can we collaborate more? And so it's a beautiful thing. And those are the things that really, create your authentic self. But then there can be times where things creep in that actually prevent you from being your authentic self, such as fear and trauma and heartache and challenges. And those are the things that sometimes can prevent us and be a roadblock to being your authentic self. And so every day it's important to have a lot of self-awareness as what are the things that are inhibiting me from being my authentic self? What are the things that, I can be doing to hedge against that? And so, I also think about in today's age how, world events and history has shaped so much of who we are as well. And so it's so important every day to think about, well, who am I and why am I this way? And is this the person I want to be? Are there things that I can change to be the person that I think I'm created to be? Because we're all so unique. We all have a unique purpose, a unique design, a unique offering. And a lot of times you see it in today's age, whereas, 50 years ago, people didn't have the opportunity they have now to take their unique self and create a business out of it. We have more solo entrepreneurs now than we have ever had before. And so, it's just so great to be able to take your unique self, your authentic self, and create a business out of it and become an entrepreneur, and to be able to replicate that into others that follow a similar value system, have the same process as you, but really wants to be able to unleash their uniqueness within a business model that you've created. And so that's a lot of times the consulting world, the coaching world. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing people taking their uniqueness, their craft, their authentic self, and applying it to the marketplace for others to benefit and to grow and just to really serve them. And so, it's just one of those things where we always have to draw back to our values and kind of, our roots and where we're from, and really make the decision every day to challenge yourself to be authentic and to overcome the roadblocks that might prevent you from being your authentic self. And, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today, and that can, hamper your ability to stay positive and, to continue to have the momentum to cultivate and to usher in those ecstatic moments. I don't know if all of them, but if you just think about one ecstatic moment you've had in life, it can really bring in a lot of positivity, and it can really, just bring in and usher in more of that into your life. And, just really making sure that you focus on your authentic self and doing so. Is that, why was that ecstatic? Why was that important? Was that rewarding in life? And so that can then help you to determine what can you be doing to usher more of those ecstatic times into your present time, and down the road. So for instance, one of my ecstatic moments was when I moved out here to LA from New York City, where I was able to launch the consulting firm. I got my first big contract there in Manhattan. And, I'm working on Wall Street area, and it was just amazing. And then I decided to move to California, and I move out to Santa Monica. And within a couple months, I get a phone call as I'm taking a road trip up the coast with a friend of mine that I am asked to work on one of the largest investigations in Brazil. And I just couldn't believe it. I was just ecstatic. I said, wow, this is going to be amazing. And the reason why it was so ecstatic was because it was investigations, and it was in Brazil, and it was international consulting work, working with one of the top now management consulting firms in investigations. Why was that important to me? Because I love justice. I love excellence. I love trust. And, investigations are helping companies become more trustworthy. It's helping companies to become more excellent. And so it was one of the most rewarding pieces of work I've done in my career. And it really is because it was all about some of my core values, and it really allowed me to be able to operate in that and to really bring my values to the workplace and for the marketplace to win. And so we were able to investigate all of the entities, and then eventually they were able to get back on the New York Stock Exchange because they were a public company, and then they failed the audit. And so they basically, had to take a hit in their stock price until they were, investigated, and then the corruption and the fraud was identified and justice prevailed. So, I was just thinking about that today. I said, there's just all this work to be done, but what work are you going to take on? And so it's so important to really take on that work that aligns with your values, because you're going to be able to bring your best self, your authentic self, your unique offering to the table to be able to really serve the industry, serve the people you are working with and commissioned to achieve great things with. And so, there's lots of great work to be done here. And one of the other things is that I really wanted to stay true to myself by giving back. I was also on the board of a nonprofit that gave scholarships to women in Cameroon. And that was my way of giving back, because I feel very privileged here in America. I just constantly am trying to remind myself of, we are so lucky to have this opportunity, and the opportunity just keeps growing, and we are paving the way for the next generation, and also the underserved today, to be able to have more opportunity. And it's just really, important to keep that in our mindset as well, as we still continue to go through COVID era. We're not really outside of COVID yet. People are still catching it. So, it's just really important to just be grateful and to really focus on the fact that there's underserved communities that we can invest in, and deciding on which ones to invest in really is best when it's aligned with your values, because then it's authentic. It's not fake. You're not investing in these nonprofits just to show people that you're giving back so it makes your company or you look better. You're actually giving back because it aligns with actually your true self, your authentic self, your values. I wouldn't be where I'm here today without a strong family and well educated. My family just poured into me. I had an uncle that he's a colonel in the military, and he fought in all the world wars after World War II because his father, my granddad, was killed in Okinawa in action. And, to look back at that, then it shaped his career. He went into military because his father was killed in the war. And then it shaped my life. I'm huge in supporting our country and the military, and to protect and to make sure that justice prevails, and to be able to provide a better opportunity for the next generation, because I had a family that just poured into me. And I believed that was important when I had the founder of RG Foundation reach out to me and ask me to help her with her nonprofit that was giving the scholarships to women in high school and also into college in Cameroon. And I said, yep, I'm all for it, because it was to help educate those women there and to be able to help them, be able to, provide their talents and their gifts to the marketplace, to be able to provide for themselves, to be able to be self-sufficient and independent, and also not vulnerable, and to be able to really, provide their unique offering to their country and abroad. And so it just aligned with everything I'm about, and it was really aligning with my authentic self. So I encourage you, and I invite you to really think about what your values are, and to meditate on those every day, and say, okay, what am I doing that is aligned with those, and what's not aligned? And whatever is not aligned with your values, just cut it out. It doesn't need to be there. We can do a lot of good things, but then if we're doing a lot of good things, we miss out on the great things. And there's timing too of things. I could be doing dance lessons right now, but it's not the right time. It should be next year. Right now I need to focus on these things. Although I love to dance, there's just it's very important that there's also a time slot of things, and sometimes you have to plan for that as well. But in your heart, what you can take on, and we all have our limitations. and our failures and our challenges. And it's important to recognize those limitations and to be kind to yourself. I can't tell you how many times I look back and I was like, I was not very kind to myself. And what it does is it actually it prevents you from extending out love and serving others, and actually acting on your values. So the more kinder you are to yourself, and the less critical and hard on yourself you are, I think the more you can really operate within your values and be an authentic person and be kind to others. And so, I think that it's also good to recognize culture. We're in a country that has a culture, and it does affect our lives, and we, operate within that culture. And so I think it's also important too to say, what else can I be doing, and still be authentic about it, that can enforce our culture as a country, as an environment. I live in Venice, California, and I'm called to help with the homeless. I just felt the burden in New York. I saw a man that was homeless and nobody was stopping to help him, and I'm sitting here with my Tory Burch purse and clothes, going to my New York job, and I couldn't really stop to help him. Also, it was a risk because I'm a female and he's a male, but nobody was stopping, and that really bothered me. And I said, okay, I need to go serve the homeless. I need to do something about this, because as a culture, I feel as though America and just in general humanity should be able to help thy brother and sister. And so that's one of the things I love about Venice, is that I can walk out the door and I can extend a smile, I can extend a hello, I can talk to the people that are struggling and trying to find their place in the world and their identity and a way to operate in life after suffering so much. And so and also to be able to overcome the humiliation and the despair that they've experienced. And so, we're making Venice great. And so that's also where it kind of aligns with my values on helping others that are underserved, marginalized, and weaker, and the fatherless as well. So, I really feel called to LA, and it's definitely my place, and it reflects my authentic self. It's complete reflection of that. So anyways, I encourage you to really think through, your values, and how you can be more authentic, and every day challenge yourself to say, was that authentic? Why wasn't it? And if it wasn't, what can I do? And then to make sure you are doing that to fix it. Because I think that that's how we make better communities, and we can better serve one another. So thank you so much for having me. I hope that was encouraging and empowering and can equip you to be a better self. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for just sharing, the insight and wisdom. And I really hear, when you're sharing, your value for connection and your value for service, and and also authenticity, and how when you're speaking about like having a connection with that, whether it's like someone who's homeless or just helping organizations, it's it's like, because there's a lot of like, I'll use the word tithing, like how people will just give 10% of their paycheck to an organization or to some cause or charity.
Mm-hmm.
But they won't necessarily know the people. They're just like they'll kind of turn a blind eye. It's like they're giving money, but they don't really have a connection with it. And I hear it's like that's something that you're creating. You're creating a new culture of to have a relationship with the people that the people you're serving. It's not just a blind check, but it's you're giving your heart, you're giving your space, and I think that's a beautiful thing to distinguish and to recognize. And I have a question for you, just because I really appreciate everything you shared. What was a time in your life that you felt a rub with your authentic self, and and what you were doing and who you were being?
I think a lot of it, so the donation side of things, so you can donate to things because you feel like it's good, but your heart is still far from it. So sometimes you're doing a lot of good because you think it's good and you should do those things, but your heart's still far. So there's sometimes those requirements because you just feel like you have to keep up. And you feel like you need to do certain things. And so I would say, it's mostly around, giving back. You want to make sure you give back to those places where your heart's actually drawn into those things. And then forgiveness. So, I had a hard time with some of the forgiveness. You just constantly have to say, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, so that eventually you can get there. So so your heart is actually forgiving. And that way, then you can be your authentic self. Because a lot of times, if you're doing things just to do things, because it's cultural, or it's an expectation, and you're just saying you forgive, it's not real because it's not coming from your heart. And so constantly working on, your heart and making sure your heart is actually really receiving those things and aligned with those things that you're doing, and that you make sure you forgive, I think is very, very important. And it takes intention every single day. It really does. And self-awareness is huge. And it magnifies. The more self-aware you are, the more magnitude and impact you have.
Yeah, I feel that. There were several things you said that really caught my attention, but two in particular. One at the very beginning, where you said using your values to create your authentic self, and I'll come back to that in a second. But the other thing was the story you told about the homeless man in New York, and like I could really feel that frustration and that empathy and that caring and that concern, and that level of awareness is something that I don't witness in many people. And so I just want to appreciate, like, honor you for being able to share that, being able to see it, and then actually acting on it, which is a huge thing. And then going back to that first part, I've never even thought about it that way, of like the values create the authentic self. To me, it's the opposite. It's the exact opposite. It's the authentic self that the values are derived from. And my task has been to like really use my emotions as my guide to uncover those values. So like that story of the homeless man, like that is a perfect example of something that would uncover one of my values. I've had plenty of experiences like that. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about like what you think about it, or like how you define creating your authentic self, and how you distinguish authentic self from inauthentic self.
Yeah. So, for instance, when I was a kid, my parents instilled in me these values, and I didn't really ask for them. They just, because I'm a kid. So I can be molded into, you know, whatever kind of my parents teach me, right? I don't really know the difference between right and wrong until they teach me, right? Inherently, we don't really know those things, unless we're taught. And so, I grew up a Christian, so we definitely went to church and, read the Bible and stuff like that. And so that helped to shape my values. And so that is then what determined my authentic self. And I just feel as though, I didn't really understand even what a value was as a kid. It wasn't until later in life that I understood, okay, that's a value. What is honesty? What is transparency? I mean, we just didn't talk about those things, but they were inherent in the way that my family operated and the culture that I lived in and what they did. Like their actions showed honesty. When I got in trouble, it showed that, dishonesty was bad, honesty is good, so we didn't really talk about the foundation. We just had the practical and the behavior and the lessons learned and the discipline. And so I think that we can be inauthentic when we're trying to hide ourselves, because we have these problems and we have these vices, we have these escapes. Drinking is a form of escape for some, and that's what leads to all the abuse and the opioid abuses. All of that can create an inauthentic self, because then you're hiding And a lot of times if you cannot be authentic because you're scared of losing your job, losing your family, in some cases, losing your inheritance, if will then create an inauthentic self because you have all this fear of losing things and ending up on the street. And so I think, and in today's age, we have the ability to have free speech, so you can go and protest. But a lot of people don't protest because they're scared. They're scared of losing, what they have. And so, it takes courage to be authentic. And it takes, perseverance to be authentic as well, and to understand how that actually develops. So I hope that answers your question.
A bit, yeah. There's actually, I'd like to challenge you for a second, if that's okay.
Sure.
The last part really resonated. The fear, like that. Absolutely, that is what tends to keep us trapped in authenticity. That's one of the biggest things in my experience is the fear. But the first part where you're talking about the values that your family instilled, I would submit that that's actually what is the beginning of the inauthentic self. Like that, the one assumption that you made in there that really stood out was, we don't know right or wrong until we're taught. I don't feel that at all. I feel like there's an actual innate understanding of what is loving and what is not. I don't really think in terms of right or wrong anymore, because those words are so relative to so many different cultures, and like there's so many different people that they just mean totally different things. Like, the Holocaust was right to Hitler. Like he thought he was in the right. He thought he was doing good. So I tend to avoid right, wrong, good, bad. But when and it took years for me to get to this place. When I really sit with myself, there's this innate feeling that comes about what is appropriate for me and what is not in that moment. And that is not something that comes from a story. It's something that I had to work through all the stories that I was told and taught growing up in order to discover. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that includes growing up in a Christian home. I grew up in a very, very Christian home, and I really value that. But there were a lot of things that came from that just, even at a younger age, even my teenage years, it just didn't fit. Like, it didn't feel resonant. There was just something that felt off and weird and just icky about it. I couldn't place it. I couldn't name it. I didn't even understand it. And it wasn't until years later that I actually came to a place of like, oh, that was just someone else's story that was being passed down through my parents as well. Like, that's what they were taught growing up, and that's what their parents were taught growing up. And nowhere in that lineage did anyone have any space to really stop and consider it until me, it feels like. And so, like, I kind of wonder, like, one, like, where do you sit with all that? And two, if you've had this experience of fear creating your authentic self, have you had the experience or recognized the experience of fear keeping you in a story that you were told and not wanting to confront it?
Well, okay, so to touch on the whole how our foundation is started. So, we had things in our faith. So people have different faiths, and they have different values that are, in their family. Not everyone comes from a strong family. A lot of people come from a broken home, actually. And, we do live in a world that can be really tough on people in society. And as they grow up, they start to challenge a lot of it, and that's, like you said, it creates your authentic self. You're like challenging. You're like, do I really believe in this? Is this really what I'm about? How do I reconcile? So, throughout our life, we're going to be reconciling kind of what we think about the world and how we think things operate, and just how we think things are, and I think that that's part of our growth and our maturity. And so in my walk, I, just worked really hard, after high school. I worked really hard. I did the process of going to college. I was in all the different sports. And that was all about, how I was raised, but it was also my interests. I had a lot of interest in, education and learning, because that was passed down to me through just activities with my uncle. Like he would test me on the presidents, and my brother and I, when we would go on cross country trips, we would get tested on the presidents, and we got money for it. And so that showed me how if you test well, you'll get money, and so that was kind of one of the ways that I was taught on how to operate and what motivated me. There's motivation too. So being authentic is it's not just about your values. It's also your motivators, what's motivating you. It can be values, but it's your value then can be, I need to make money. I value money. That money is it provides for things. So I think it's about just being fiscally responsible with everything and how you live and how you operate. And I think it's a journey. So it sounds like you're on a really good journey. And there is a reconciliation that people have to make. And I think it's okay for people to challenge their upbringing, and that then will bloom and blossom. As Abram said, taking you from the caterpillar into the cocoon to the butterfly is helping you transform into yourself. And you get to uncover that in your journey. And as you walk every single day, and you start to really understand more about how we're supposed to live and operate on this earth in the day and age that we are. I believe like we're all here at a relevant time. Like I wasn't supposed to live 50 years ago. I was supposed to live right now, and I'm supposed to do something right now. And so I think, it's important to constantly challenge yourself and challenge others to have those discussions, because it's very healthy. It's very healthy to have those conversations, and that then develops you being more authentic. Even this conversation today is going to help me become more authentic, because I'm going to have a better understanding of other people's views and how my views intersect with theirs, and how they're different and how they're aligned and how they're alike. And so that's how we can all grow as a community and a society. And we can, address the problems we have today, and to help people that are underserved and weaker than us. Because it always goes back to me, how are we making the underserved and the weaker? How are we defending the weak and the underserved in what we're doing? Don't just become more successful and become more successful. Do that to be able to then help people that are underserved be able to be less vulnerable, less traumatized, and less harmed, to create a safer environment. So there's less crime, and there's less abuse and people in prison. We don't want those things in society. So how can we take our strength, our successes, and to really be able to cultivate a community's weakness into becoming a stronger one.
Absolutely. And what you're saying about like reconciliation, I feel like I'm reminded of, I think we're always at the effect or the impact of our inauthentic self. And we are, but we are also, we're at the impact of our inauthentic self, and we have an opportunity to be at the source of our authentic self. And I think it's where that it's those eclipsing each other is where it's where the struggle, but also where the opportunity is where is my fear, where is my suffering, and I think sharing, like you're saying, authentically and vulnerably as a butterfly is, that's an invitation for someone to look outside of their frame of the way they see themselves in the world. And just for me, it was I was hiding like a turtle in the shell. I was afraid to be me. I was struggling to belong, yet I was afraid to share my own voice. And because I viewed myself in the world through this keyhole, this is me, everybody, this is the world, just kind of squinting, and it's and it was, for me, it was a Bob Dylan poem that, cracked that door open a little bit. But I feel like this is where art, this is where expression, this is where human, vulnerable, authentic sharing it is literally and figuratively a superpower, where we break out of the frame. It's like when we discover we are not who we thought we were, and reconciling between who we are and who we're not. And I think that's what this journey is. And it's like, if we were all born in butterflies, I could akin this to, the Garden of Eden. We're all born. It's like there would be nowhere to go. But we have to go through our journey is, follow. I have a saying, we're born sitting down, but we have to fall flat on the face in the mud in order to stand up. And that's kind of part of the journey. I want to, Sarah, I really just so appreciative of you being with us and sharing. We're going to check back with you in a little bit. I want to invite our second guest in just a moment here, but any last words you'd like to say before, because we're gonna bring you back in a moment, but I want to let you have the last word here.
Yeah, I would say I just encourage you to challenge yourself and to really think about how you operate in every activity that you do, and how that is translating back into a better you, and what you can do for yourself to make you better, and then also to be able to extend that to others.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for just being with us and for sharing your story. And I love who you're being in the world, and just being that service and that connection, and every space that you wander across, whether it's in New York or in Venice. So just thank you for being here, and just thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
I'm gonna take a quick moment to check in with our audience. Thank you all for being with us. I want to take this opportunity to just invite you to be a guest on this stage. No matter who you are, where you're from, I would assert you have something unique that somebody else needs to hear. You have something, in your deepest valley that you've overcome, and the fears that you faced, and the traumas, and the scariest things that, one could imagine, you've overcome. And somebody else needs to hear, what have you faced and what have you overcome that's allowed you to discover you and let go of who you're not. That's what this space is for, is to celebrate your humanity, but also who you are as a possibility, as our neighbor. What are you bringing to the picnic? We want to invite you to be on the stage. The link is at the bottom of the screen. And this is part of our one-day mission, which is bringing you and me and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. So now it's my pleasure to welcome my friend and our second guest. We have with us Ryan Vaniski. And I should say, welcome, Ryan. But Ryan was our kick-ass event manager for our pre-launch event we had in December. And we had such an amazing experience. But so glad to have you on the stage, Ryan. How are you doing today, brother? Good to see you.
Hey, guys. I'm so happy to be here. Should we touch foreheads? Come on, let's touch foreheads. Aloha.
Aloha.
I'm so grateful that I got to meet both of you, and it was such an enormous privilege to be able to participate in the event that you had, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
We couldn't have done it without you. Seriously, it would not have happened at all.
It would not happen, or it would have been 12 hours long. And Ryan was holding the space to move. The guests, the musicians, the poet, all the different videos, and he was micromanaging that just to the T. So it was such a thank you. That was so. I can't wait because we've been releasing that, but we have so much exciting stuff, and I want to just to share with everybody. Part of what we're creating, with this movement is a stage in a global holiday in a worldwide. This is This is a dated reference, but for some reason it feels appropriate to say it's like Woodstock for the soul. This is an opportunity for you to come to this picnic for humanity and to share your gift and to shine your light. But we could reminisce and talk about all day about plans. But Ryan, it's so good to have you on the stage, brother. But
Thank you.
Without further ado, if you're ready, the stage is yours.
I'm ready. I'm always ready for you. Thanks, guys. So what I want to talk about today is living your passion. Everyone has some sort of power inside of them, a deep calling, you could call it, inside your heart. And I knew what that was when I was younger. I grew up on the stage. I think I was about 9 years old when I first started acting. My parents put me into it was like a small theater group for children. I didn't ask for it, but they just put me in there figuring that it would be something good for me. And I fell in love with it. I absolutely loved performing. I don't know what it was, but it was just an opportunity for me to be something that I'm not normally. Because normally I'm kind of a quiet person. I stay to myself, and I get a little crazy sometimes because at the same time I grew up watching cartoons, and I loved the absurdity and also the fact that anything is possible. So as I grew older, I started working in theater. I was doing a lot of performing, a lot of singing, and a lot of backstage work, learning the technology, and I ended up directing a couple of shows and even some short films as well. And I knew that was a direction for myself. That was my passion. That's what lit me up. Anytime I would see any sort of a production or anything that had to do with live entertainment, I could just feel my heart swelling with joy and excitement. And it was probably when I was about 18 or 19 years old, I got afraid. I had opportunities where I could do some great things in my life and expand what it was that I was ending up to be, which could have been a popular actor or a director. But I let the fear inside of me stop. I didn't send out resumes. I didn't go on auditions. I didn't do anything. I was just afraid. And I ended up in the corporate world for 25 years, doing things semi-artistic, graphic design, a little bit of video editing and things like that. But there was always that passion inside of me that wanted to perform. And even greater than that, to create dynamic and amazing stage productions like the stuff that you see in the Las Vegas Strip or at a Disneyland, something like that. Huge, technologically advanced shows that take audiences to another world completely. I wanted to create those kinds of things, but I was stuck behind a desk sitting on my fear, and I didn't go anywhere. And what I attribute to is every hair on my head here that is missing is a day in my life that I was not living my passion. And I was doing this for over 25 years. And I could feel that my soul was shriveling. And it came to the point several years ago that I realized I simply stopped dreaming. I stopped having any ambitions that I wanted to do with my life, and I was simply reluctantly content to work for a paycheck. And I could feel my whole body was falling apart. My mind was falling apart. I didn't have any creativity. I didn't have any imagination for anything. And it was about 1 year ago, I think right about 1 year ago, at the beginning of February last year, I was realizing that I had an opportunity to go in two directions. I could continue as I was, being I wouldn't even say content with my life, but just surviving, living life. Or I could go in a more creative direction. And I had a couple of conversations with two friends who were very influential to me. They gave me some positive ideas about who I am and how to go into myself, go into my heart and reawaken who I truly am. Just like we're talking about the authentic self. I was stunting and blocking that authentic self of who I was and what I needed to do with my life. So after those conversations happened, I went into a deep and dark depression for about 2 days. It was quick. It was quick but intense. And I knew that this was an opportunity for great transformation for me. And I simply allowed it to happen. And it was a decision to either continue as I was or to go in a more creative direction. And of course, the outcome was I chose the creativity because that is what is running through my blood. And I simply don't have any choice because that is my authentic self. And I needed to make it happen. So I took the steps to create the world that I wanted for myself. And I stopped listening to the fear. I stopped listening to my limiting thoughts and beliefs about me and who I was and what I could do in my life. And I started listening to intuition for every single possible choice that I had. All intuition. Sometimes it was scary, and sometimes it was ecstatic. But I'm extremely grateful that I did that. I chose intuition for everything. And what it led me to is what I'm doing right now, which is voice acting. Now, I didn't have a desire to be a voice actor. When I was younger and I was acting, of course I wanted to voice cartoons, but I was told it's such a small niche community and you have to be someone in that community already. Otherwise you're not going to get in. And so I let that go. I didn't even bother with it. But now technology has changed and the internet has so many possibilities for delivering the voice products that I could do it. I have the technology. So I chose to go forward and become a voice actor. And I could tell you, since then, my life has been tremendous. I'm living my best life right now because I followed my intuition. I know exactly where I'm going. And at the same time, I don't, because I'm allowing life to guide me, to push me along on a wave, like I'm surfing on a wave, and I'm being guided by nature, by divine intuition, telling me where to go and what to do. And this is just the first step in my path towards reawakening my creativity. This is the opportunity for me to practice my craft as performance and also get paid for it. But the end result is going to be going back to what I wanted to do 25 years ago and create these dynamic, enormous productions. And this is where I am going with my life. And I'm telling you this because I want everyone who is listening to stop with the fear. Stop allowing the fear that is inside of your mind that is telling you you're not good enough. You can't do this. If you jump out of the plane, you're not going to be safe. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, if you take the leap towards what it is you want to do, you are actually going to be safe. And you just have to trust that. Life wants you to live and survive in joy. I always tell everyone life is about being happy and having fun. And I'm adding to that, giving back to the world. But if you are not in your full self, if you're not living your authentic self and you are not following your true path and what you are designed here to be on this earth to do, you don't have anything to give back to others. You have to feed yourself so that you could give to others. And that's really where I want to go with my life, is not only to share my art and share the creativity and the love that I have for bringing positive emotions and wonderful lessons to people. I want to share that with the world, and at the same time, take the profits that I get from that and give back to the world. Give back to as many people as I possibly can. Feeding the homeless, just like we were talking about earlier. And giving homes to people who are in need, or possibly even saving people from foreclosure because prices are going up everywhere. I want to give back to the world with creativity, with art, and just show the world that there is love. I was listening to an interview a couple of weeks ago, and it was probably an interview from the 60s, and there was a man who was, I think he was a spiritual person, and he was talking about how you have to have everything in the world is good. Everything in the world is good. And the person who was interviewing him asked him, well, what are the problems that you see in the world? And the gentleman started crying for quite a long time. And after he was crying, he started to list the common things, like there's poverty, there's war, there's disagreements in the world. But if I were asked that question, my answer would simply be a lack of love. That is the only thing that is wrong with the world, is a lack of love. We as humanity feel like we are limiting ourselves in who we love. And all we need to do is bring others together. And that's what I love so much about the one day movement, is that's what this is all about. It's bringing people together. And at the same time, it's influencing all of these people to live their passions. Find the power that's inside of you and create from that. Everyone has had difficulties in their lives, and everyone had the opportunity to make that transformation into the blossoming person that you are now. And that's what this is all about. One day is about being you. One day you are going to be great. And I tell you, you are great right now. And I am so ecstatic to be here on this stage to share not only with you two gentlemen, but with this entire community. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me here and allowing me the opportunity here to tell my story and to hopefully give a little bit of inspiration and love.
Thank you so much, Ryan. That was so powerful, and I appreciate the acknowledgement. I love hearing your passion is contagious, and it's just like what you're speaking about. Like sitting. As you're saying, you're sitting on your fear, and I love that how you worded that, because it's almost like I just imagine how many people are sitting in office chairs at the work, and just like almost like it comes with the office chair. It's like this is you're sitting on the fear, little swivel chair, and you're like, here I am sitting on my fear today, and I love that that you discovered that for yourself. Not only that you are a gift and the gifts you have to share, but how you how it's not only contagious, it's who you're being. Whether you follow your passion or not, there's a cost,
right?
And you could have and you were just sharing like how for all those years you were sitting on your passion, but letting the fear kind of guide you. But whether you acted on or not, it's always there. And this is kind of, we'll bring Sarah in for this because I kind of see a connection here. But it's like, no matter what we do, regardless of whether we follow our dreams or just ignore them and say, la, 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 I don't want to, or anywhere in between, there's an impact, and it's right. Like, ultimately where we find fulfillment is when, and this is my, my belief, my experience is that when we find our piece in the puzzle of how we can lift others up with what we uniquely have. And it's like what you're speaking about, creativity is, that's the power of, where we can, one of the definitions, I have many definitions of art, but one definition I would be is, bringing people beauty that they didn't even know they could see.
Ooh, I love that.
And I like to use the example of like the Harlem Renaissance, because, before the Harlem Renaissance, I should say the stereotype or the belief of Harlem was just crime ridden. It was, slums, and it was just people poor who were just living around among poor people, interacting with poor people, and crime. And it's just like, that was the reputation of Harlem. And, at some point, a mural, like a place that was physically what people would distinguish as ugly, all of a sudden a beautiful mural just pops up, and someone's like, huh, I didn't know it could be pretty here. I didn't know there could be, and it's just like, that was just like one seed of just one piece of art. And all of a sudden, people are like, wow, this is, all of a sudden I feel like lit up, and I feel alive. Something's different here. And then another mural would come up, and then more murals, and then more paint, more art and jazz and culture and music of just the uniquely only could happen in Harlem and in New York, that all of a sudden what starting gentrified and people start moving in because of how much art there is. And then it becomes like the spectacle of the world. It's like, wow, this is what, and it's like a renaissance. And I see that's the power you and I and we and Sarah and Matthew, we all have right now. We all get to whatever it is, our unique, whether it's our poem, our song, our brush, our voice, we get to say. And I just, you got me fired up, Ryan.
Good. Yeah, we're all creative beings. Whether you are an artist or not, we are all creative beings. And if you are disallowing yourself to be as fully creative as you possibly can, then you're not living your authentic self. Just like Sarah is saying, we have gifts. All of us have gifts, and it's our responsibility to share those gifts with as many people as we possibly can. That's why we're here.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's so true.
That actually may be another way to look at suffering. Like, if we're not sharing what we really are, it hurts. I love that you're cognizant of the hairs missing. That kind of made me giggle a little bit, because I have a similar experience. The more I avoid being real, the more disease, fear, or the more disease and uncomfort and ultimately suffering I feel. Mm-hmm. And that does, I've seen that manifest into so many different things, not balding, but, obesity, muscle pains, pinched nerves, you name it. I've seen it, and I've actually seen people come out of it. I've seen drastic changes overnight simply by recognizing they have not been real. And it's a hell of a journey to get there. But right. That moment of oh shit. Oh, and then weeks later, they're totally different.
Yes. Right.
Totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
it's the resistance. Energy is supposed to flow. That's the whole point of it. It's like a river. A river needs to flow. If you stop the river, it's going to swell up. And if you stop your flow of your energy and your creativity and your inspiration, you're going to have problems. It could be mental, it could be emotional, it could be physical, but there is going to be some result of that resistance. Yeah. And we have to find out some kind of way, find the courage to take down that dam and to eliminate that resistance, that block, that fear that is preventing you from going forward in your life. Yep. We all have that.
Over the last 10 years, I've gotten to this place where I really wonder if there's anything that's actually impossible anymore. Yes, because I've literally seen an example of almost every single thing science or a medical doctor, Western medical doctor, has said, no, you'll never heal from that. That's impossible. Mm-hmm. And yet they do. And they do by doing the emotional work and letting go of their fear and becoming real. And that's
believe.
I've seen cancer cure, I've seen people cure themselves with cancer. We even had a guest on here who had what was the type of cancer she had, Abram? Where it was I
remember the name, but she was the only success story that had been on record.
Wow. Literally the only success story in the entire world.
Wow.
But she chose, the doctor told her, you have 3 months to live.
You're not going to make it. Yeah.
Yeah. Period. That was it. She's like, no, I'm not. I don't accept that. And she started doing the work, and here she is. 10 years later or something like that. When she came on the show.
10 or 15. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's probably not the first anymore. She probably ran that 4-minute mile, and now there's hundreds of people around the world who have cured themselves.
Exactly. So,
let's bring Sarah back in on this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It feels like it's about time.
Right. I want to, Sarah, I want to let you chime in, and let you both, just speak what you heard in each other. But one thing that we were just saying is, in that suffering, our expression, the expression of our authentic self, it's an opportunity to transform our suffering into something beautiful. Whether it's for ourselves, our family, the homeless man on the street, someone we've never met across the world in this Zoom day and age. But I want to, and after this, I also want to invite. I have an inquiry for both of you. And real quick before you both share it, Matthew, I just sent you a link on email I felt really called to share a video that I'd like to watch together. If you guys have 5 minutes, because it really brings together everything we've been sharing. But please go share. Sarah, welcome back, and please chime in.
Yeah. So just back to the, we're all unique and we all have a heart, and we try to operate from our heart, and we have values. It was that when we are authentic, sometimes we are able to explain where our problems are, and actually, operating in our values in a way that's healthy. For instance, we might value money. And that can translate into your life of when I work really hard at an investment bank, or work really hard as a business owner or startup because I have the opportunity to make more money or have more freedom. What happens is then as you collect those things and you're rewarded, you then to use those things for yourself and not for others, or not to steward those things to make sure that those things are done well. So you could be one person to have more money and to just spend it on yourself. Or you can have more money to make sure that it's stewarded and it goes into the right places. It goes into other countries to be able to help women have education, or to help children stop being human trafficked. So there's a value there that you have, and then you do things to obtain those things. Like, I value freedom and money, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z with my life. But then what ends up happening is that, and this is where self-awareness comes into play. Should I be buying these things for myself, or can I use that money to actually go somewhere else? Because that's going to align more with my values. And being authentic is actually sharing with people along your journey and having accountability, and making sure that you're actually you're actually moving forward in the right direction, to what you work so hard for every single day is actually achieving the results that you desire, and actually are going to be reputable and helping others, like the whole curing of cancer. Right? You can go to be a doctor to just make more money, right? And to have more numbers of people living, just to have those credentials, just to say I did those things. Or you're actually going to actually be there to heal people, so people can live longer, and people can actually, overcome disease and not be sitting in the hospital for years suffering from cancer. They actually can have a turnaround very quickly. So they work on the latest and greatest technology so that they're cured within a surgery or two. My sister just had to have a tumor removed, and if they hadn't caught it, it could have developed into cancer. And so there are people that are constantly developing things so that we can have better health, and less suffering. So that is because, people go into the medical field because they actually care about reducing suffering. Some go into it for the money and because they're good at it and they like it. But in reality, I think a lot of people are drawing from the inner value of, I actually do care about people, and I care about their well-being and their health. And as you're authentic every single day, being your authentic self, you can uncover more of that, and you can really, direct your steps. And you can fix and course correct on how you operate and what you do every day, and how you steward your life.
Yes, I agree, because there are a lot of people out there who go into those noble professions, doctor, attorney, to help people, but they're motivated by the money and the status and the prestige they might get from that, even if it's influenced by their family to go into those professions. But there are plenty of options out there to make enormous amounts of money and to be in a public eye. But they chose those noble positions because they really have it in their hearts to help others, to be greater to others, and to lift people up. So no matter what it is, there are always going to be great people out there who whatever their motivation is, there's always at the core of it to help others, to be that beacon of hope for greater people. Yeah. Whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, a police officer, an artist, and sometimes even real estate investors. You might think that they're all about give me the profit and let me flip that house, but there's a lot of people out there who really, they just want to create homes for people.
Yeah.
like creating facilities for homeless people to live in. So it's the core of the authentic self that just wants to give back to the world.
Yeah. So I want to ask both of you an inquiry, and then I want to share this video, and as we close, we'll chime in on that. But I just wanted, because I really hear something in what both of you are sharing about, and something I'm discovering is I feel like the gift that we end up giving the world, or the passion that we follow, is usually something that maybe we didn't have, or someone we knew didn't have. It's like whatever we didn't have as a kid, or we were aware of that people didn't have as a kid, it becomes our passion, but it also becomes our form of justice. It's like, this is not right that people don't have this, and like that's almost the fuel of the virtue of the justice of what every child, every human we feel deserves. And I want to ask you a real quick, what is, in like 3 or 4 sentences or less, what is your, asking yourself, what is my highest aim, and what does that look like? I want to ask. Brian, you go first.
My highest aim is to create art that is going to inspire people to be better people. Because this isn't necessarily taught in schools. We're taught how to do math and how to write and whatever profession it is, but it's not necessarily taught how to be a good person. And a lot of that comes from our own thinking and the beliefs that we have. And I want to use art and creativity to share those insights to help people understand that they can be greater. And at the same time, I want to help the environment, because I come from a holistic background, and if people are fine but they're destroying the world, then what's the point of it? So I want to give back in so many different ways.
Yeah, beautiful. How about you, Sarah? What is your highest aim, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it's actually freeing influencers to serve by catalyzing their potential and joy. It's kind of like my life purpose. I uncovered that through a coach back in New York City, and it was just like a birthing process. It was amazing to finally uncover that. And I do that, at Value Integrators, through really empowering people, giving them better technology, process, and data. And it helps to free those influencers at the company, and it catalyzes their potential and joy when they have really good infrastructure that actually helps them do their job and do what they're good at. Because a lot of times people also go into a profession because they're just good at it. They're just good at law. They're good at medicine. And so, there's that whole part of, why do you do what you do? Well, it's skill, it's values, and it's opportunity, and those are the key areas that kind of drive where we end up in our careers. But yeah, it's freeing influencers to serve by catalyzing your potential and joy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing. So I want to share this video. Just, we're talking about passion. We're talking about, following the thing in our heart that we love, and this just felt appropriate. So I just want to go ahead and play the video, but let's watch.
The best way to mold your life into your passion is to just live it, do it, every single day. Just be devoted to what you care so much about. The state of the line that you're walking on, it totally reflects the current mood you're in, the way you're feeling, any problems going on in your life, it all comes out when you're walking the slack line. Any thought that's going through your mind, any bad feelings you're feeling, or any tenseness in your body, it's going to travel down your body onto the line and cause it to move, and it's going to shake, and you're going to see it happening. And the way to get around that is just let everything go. Find that tense spot in your body and just release it. Because any movement that the line is making is coming from you. So if you stop yourself, the line will just follow. Focused on listening to the line, not with my ears but with my body, just feeling the movements, seeing what's happening, and then reacting to it. And I feel like the same thing is happening in life. Just experiences are coming at me, and I'm not necessarily reacting right away, but I listen to them and just react accordingly. And I feel that slacklining has taught me a lot in that respect. It was a very drastic change going from hardcore video game playing to slacklining, but I've always been kind of a one-track mind kind of guy, where I dive into something big time. I was into Rubik's Cubes really a lot for a while, video games for a long time, yo-yos in high school, marbles, all these things. I just went crazy and did nothing but those activities. But slacklining was different. It's been here for 4.5 years now. Every day I get more and more stoked for the sport. It's just, I don't know what it is, but slacklining is here to stay. You have to trust that you are able to stay on top of the slackline. So it's a very trusting sport, and I feel that has transpired into other parts of my life as well. I haven't set a final goal for myself with the sport. I do it for fun. There's no end. I love it. I can walk a 20-foot high line and be super stoked about it, because I just love the sport. And I just want to continue doing it for the rest of my life. And to keep designing equipment and keeping up to date with the best slackliners in the world, watching what they're doing and just seeing the stoke rise. It's just, I love it.
Awesome. I really wanted to share. Some reason that felt appropriate, because just been both of your sharing, and being our authentic versus our inauthentic self, following our passion or sitting on our fear. One of the things that really stood out to me in that video is, everything he was resisting as he was on the stoke line. It was the resisting that caused him to fall. And it's like how that is analogous to life, but it's when you don't judge, you see the resistance, and you let go, you let things happen, you trust that things will work out. And it's such a beautiful metaphor for life. And I just wanted to share that with everybody, but hear your thoughts.
Yeah, that was inspirational, because what he was saying is that any movement that from the rope comes from you. And that is so true and indicative of life itself, because we create everything in our lives, and if we have any sort of influence in our feelings, in whatever choices that we make, it's going to affect the path that we take. And the path for him was the rope. So, any little thing makes it move. And we have that kind of power in our daily lives. Anything that we do, anything that happens for us, it's our choice, and we're creating it.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it seems like one of his values is to be excellent. Like one of our values at Value Integrators is excellence, and it's all about being a master at what you do best. And clearly, he's really good at that stoke. And so, it just goes to show that he's excellent, and being excellent takes devotion, and those are all really good values, and that was clear in his work there. I mean, what amazing talent he has. So,
yeah, I really just so appreciate both of you in this conversation. It's been I learned a lot. I'm just inspired by who you were both being, and what in the space you hold for others, and for contribution, for service, but just you being the fullest expression of you is allowing others to be the full expression of themselves. So I just acknowledge you both, and I'm just very grateful, and I just so thrilled to have you. Thank you both for being here. And before we close, I want to invite you to say any last words you'd like to share.
Yeah, thank you, Abram. And you are living your passion right now too, and so are you, Matthew and Sarah. I'm so grateful to be in this group with the three of you. It's uplifting, it's inspiring, and I see greatness for all of us. So thank you for having me here.
I think we'll just draw from the fact that just be really good at whatever you do, and just make sure it's always from the heart, and you're always extending love when you do your work.
Oh, yeah. One of the hardest lessons I ever had to really integrate was being honest with myself doesn't mean just being honest about the things that I don't like about myself. It's also being honest about what I'm good at, what I'm excellent at. And there's this fear of being too prideful like that. And I see that a lot. I see it myself where I could not distinguish at the time between pride and confidence. And learning that difference and learning to be honest with myself has been one of the greatest gifts that I have ever received in this life. And along with that came the realization that being me is the most valuable thing that I can be. Ryan, I was with you for the longest time where I was constantly looking for ways to earn money and create value in things that I didn't truly care about. There was no passion there. And I was convinced that no one cared about the things I cared about. So I would avoid doing them. And it wasn't until I was put in this position where I was forced, I couldn't make money any other way. I couldn't find a job. I couldn't the only way I could survive was to be real, and started recognizing that this is actually something that people just want to pay back in some way, and one of the primary ways in our culture of paying back is by giving money. So that's the gratitude they give for just me, being real. So yeah, thank you both. I really appreciate both your perspectives, and I got my wish today. I got to really listen to diverse beliefs. Sarah, I love you, and you're so many ways you come from the exact opposite place I am, and I really appreciate that. So thank you both, and until next time.
Yeah, we'd love to have both of you back in the future, and just thank you again for being with us. And I just want to take an opportunity to thank everybody at home for being with us and tuning in, and want to again take the opportunity to just invite you to be on the stage with us. This is your space to shine your light, to share your gift, and we really honor who you are and what you're creating. This is a space for you to share your gift, and that's what this is about. Is, you know, if everybody in this world had one gift, and I would assert we have more than one gift, that's almost 8 billion gifts we get to receive, and we want to invite you to share your gift with us, and we want to share your gift with the world. But, you know, part of what we do here, this is our one day vision, is humanity rising in a connected world with each person's unique gifts, genius, and contributions are being valued and magnified through a higher level of collaboration, producing unprecedented new realms of possibility. Thank you all. Thank you again to Ryan and Sarah for being with us. We will see you next week. We love you. Be well, be safe. And as always, one day is today.
Mahalo nui loa.
E como mai. Aloha.
Peace.
Aloha.